underdogs on top. And I'm gon' shine, homie, until my heart stop. Go ahead, envy me. I'm Raps MVP, and I ain't going nowhere.
Hey, everybody. How you guys doing? That's right. What do you guys think of day 2 so far? Is it good? All right. I'm glad I have the privilege of speaking to you at the end of the conference. But I have a nervous laugh tick, so please bear with me. I love that song. That was a song I always played when I won a jury verdict, and that was the game, 50 Cent featuring the Game. I think that was the Game's walk-on music when he came out with that. But folks, I'm here. I want to thank Jim and Tyson for putting this on. And I came last year to the Maximum Lawyer Conference and got to meet Jim and Tyson, and they were the real deal, and it was really sweet. And I got to meet a lot of good folks last year, got a lot of great ideas, and I think that's the value of this conference, is when you pick brains and talk to other people. And I love seeing you folks again this year and meeting new ones this year. And it's kind of funny, when I came to the conference last year, I went on social media, said, hey, I'm really jazzed about coming, and I put a thing on Twitter or Facebook. I was like, hey, I'm leaving CVG. I'm going to be in St. Louis soon. Can't wait, put something up on there. So I get into town, and I get to go to the welcome conference that Jim and Tyson put on. It was a nice spread, and I got to meet Jim and Tyson, and Jim is like, let me get this straight. You flew in from CVG? I'm like, yeah, I flew in from CVG. He goes, but your practice is in Arizona. I'm like, yeah, my practice is in Arizona. Tell me that is. How does that work? So I get that. I get that a lot. And I get that in this conference because I have to explain it to everybody. But I'm going to try to do my best. So I don't know if you folks... I don't know if you folks all know, are anybody from the West Coast? All right, great, West Coast in the house. So I didn't know where Cincinnati was. All I knew was WKRP in Cincinnati. But I met my beautiful wife in Kingman, Arizona. She was waiting for her bar results and she was interning at the public defender. I was a prosecutor, then I became defense attorney. I was a defense attorney. I saw her in court. I always wanted to do my best job whenever she was in court. So eventually we got married. We had our first kid. And she always wanted to move back to Cincinnati. And I told her, I said, we could do that. Let me get financially independent and we can do it. I'll start over, right? Like, I can find a new job, we can, wave in or whatever, we could start over. And that was like, we talked about it. And you just talked about it over the years. And we were like, then we had our kid, and we're like, it'd be nice, we live in Kingman, Arizona. Kingman's like Radiator Springs, that's what Kingman's like, right? A little bit bigger. But we have Doc and Sally and all of them. But we're like, it'd be nice if you raised our kid in some good schools. And like, yeah, we'll do it. Well, back in October 2014, my wife and I flew from Phoenix to New York City, and we were going to go catch a show, go to a fancy restaurant, do something in New York City, and we fly across country. And we get off the plane in JFK, and my wife turns on her phone, and she's getting messages from her parents, her mom, and she's getting a message from her sister. And the message was that her dad, who's a retired firefighter, he worked on a ladder truck, he was a roofer part-time. He had fallen off a ladder, working on his building, retired 3 weeks from the fire department, fell off a ladder and became paralyzed, became paraplegic. That was October of 2014. So my wife and I decided, it's like, look, life's too short let's make this happen. Let's move back to Cincinnati. Let me be closer to my family. Let's raise our kids. Let them go to private schools like we did when we were young. Let's raise them. Let's do it. So that was the decision, because a lot of people ask me that, like, why do you move back to Cincinnati? Why are you doing that? That's why. It's a family decision. Well, the problem is that, well, it really wasn't a problem. But the challenge is that I had business in Arizona. And you can see there, there's our home in Cincinnati, or in Ohio, OH. And then we got Arizona over there on the left with the little courthouse. And there's that plane. That's that Delta plane that I take to Arizona. Back in the day, it was every 6 weeks. And then last year, it was 3 times. 3 days, right? 3 times. So that's what I do. But before I moved, I had to make some plans to go out there. Now, I'll tell you what, 3 years ago, it was 3 years ago this July when I drove cross-country on Old Route 66 and drove through St. Louis and had my Pappy's barbecue. That's when I moved, and that's when this all started, this cross-country experience. But I found, back then, it was kind of like really a weird concept, working remotely, working virtually. Now, it's kind of accepted. Like, people get it now. Back then, not so much. And I had to keep explaining it at dinner parties, what the heck I was doing. But now it's more accepted. And I think Richard Grenett, I was getting ready for his presentation, he described this concept as having a click and mortar business. And my model is I have a real physical office. I have real lawyers. This isn't like a virtual thing, or I have a product or something. It's like we're criminal lawyers. We're not writing contracts and stuff. I have boots on the ground that are going to court. So this is what I call, well, that's what Richard calls the click and mortar model. And I want to show you a little bit more about my office, because I just want folks to kind of wrap it around their heads what I'm talking about, if you're not from Arizona. But I'll show you a map. Kingman, like I said, that's where I started. That was my first job. That was my first office. Then I figured out a little bit of the SEO game. Got some shared office space in Bullhead City, Lake Havasu. You guys heard of Lake Havasu. That's my jurisdiction. That was my home county. And then we expanded into Prescott, got a co-space over there. And now this year, since MaxLawCon last year, and after I learned all the things about systems, about scaling, all that stuff, all that good stuff, I've been having profits that go up 20% every year. And last year was a great year. We added Flagstaff, Arizona, to our office this year. And I have a partner that helps me run that. So I have 2 staff offices and 3 co-spaces. And that's my team. Really proud of it. I have 3 associates, and I have 2 of them. I give them the title of a partner. They're non-equity partners in my firm. And how I did it was I had a plan. I had a big plan of how I was going to do it, because when we got the news about my father-in-law and his accident, and by the time in October 2014, and then when we finally moved in July of 2016, I put in some steps in place to figure it out how I was going to do it. And basically, I hired a partner. I hired somebody who I felt like I was cloning myself. And I compensated that partner, and I trusted her to do the court work. And then I also figured out which courts in rural Arizona would actually let me phone it in. And I basically figured out that I would call into court. You know, Ohio's 3 hours ahead. Work out the time differences. Work with clients over the phone. And, you know, a lot of you folks might be thinking to yourself, well, how do you do with the office consultations? How does that all work out? I get that. You know, I'm in Arizona. You got the Grand Canyon, you got Flagstaff, you got I-40, you know, lots of tourists, lots of people from out of state. They didn't care that I was signing them up over the phone. It's always been that way, and I knew it was going to be that way when I left. And that's how I did it for a long time. It was like I figured out which courts I could phone it in, and then I figured out how to efficiently manage my docket so that I could fly out to Arizona every 6 weeks. And that worked really good. But there was things are going great. Things are going great in my firm. And I got a lot of efficiencies going on. I'm figuring it out. And I tell you, one of those trips, I came out to McCarran in Vegas, and I tell you what, even if you're just doing it every 6 weeks, flying cross country really sucks, and taking red eyes back really sucks. And you know that jet lag the next day is terrible. And I remember getting off the plane at McCarran, and I got off the flight, and it landed about 8 p.m. And I knew, because I did the flight every 6 weeks. It's like I knew that there's another flight going back to Cincinnati an hour later. And I said to myself, like, man, I miss my wife, I miss my kids. I wish I could just go on that flight back to Cincinnati. And that's when I said, you know what, I'm going to hire another associate. And I did. It worked. It was easy. Young, smart guy. I was handling misdemeanors by phone, for crying out loud. Traffic tickets, criminal tickets. We're signing up lots of business, lots of serious felonies with my partner. And I just handed it off to him. Said, here you go. And it worked. It clicked. So, you know, it's just that leap of faith that you all got to make at some points in your business where you got to trust it with other people. And, you know, that's what I trust. I trusted it, let it go, and it worked. You know, knock on wood. So, like I said, with what, you know, I think some people want to know about, you know, maybe some of the nuts and bolts, you know. Before I left to Ohio, I ditched my physical server, my $3,000 Dell server. I ditched that thing, scrapped it. I went all cloud. You know, that's when I got my case for the first time. I got, you know, we were using G Suite for Gmail and all that stuff. But, you know, we got in my case, I kicked the server, went all cloud. I bought my team all Macs because I didn't want to mess with IT issues. Macs are reliable. I got a Nest Cam for the lobby, a Nest thermostat so people don't crank the thermostat too much when I'm not there. And, you know, that's how we do it. And, you know, the thing is, though, is that you all can do this. You all should be doing this. You all should be having associates doing your work. Most of you probably do. I'm probably preaching to the converted. All of you should have associates who do it. All of your associates can do the work. You got the technology. This is how you run a law firm now. You're doing this now. It doesn't matter if you're in the same city or a different state or across country, you can do it now. I just want to point out, and that's because you're working on your business, not in your business. And now I don't do any legal work. It's all marketing, it's all administration, it's all intake. That's what I do. That's how I make it work. That's how I make money. I make a good amount. I'm good with it. I'm happy with it. And get to my next slide. I want to encourage you that you can do it. This is Tom Martin. You probably heard of him. He runs a tech company, but before that, he had a firm in Los Angeles. But he moved to Canada because his wife's from Canada. And he did an episode on The Law Entrepreneur about that. You have Megan Zavea, podcast celebrity, right? You all know her. She does ethics work. She's from Georgia. Her practice is solely in California. And before she moved to Georgia, she was in Australia running her practice. Regina Edwards. She was on the Generation Y podcast. She runs a divorce firm in Atlanta, and she lives in Arizona, and I checked on this. She's inactive in Arizona. Nothing. I'm not licensed in Ohio. I didn't mention that. I'm not licensed in Ohio. So you could do that, and these are 3 other examples. You can do that now. So I want to thank you all for listening to me. Thank you for the opportunity to share it with all of you. I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to let you know what my story is, and thanks for having me. Appreciate it.